Yeah, so a couple of weeks ago, Ole, who wrote this book, he sent it to me, and it's in Danish. Unfortunately, not in English, but I wish it was for people who don't understand Danish. But anyway, Ole sent it to me, and I'm not really a big history buff, but it is a really good book. It basically tells. It's the first part of two-part book, and it tells the story of people coming to America from Denmark from the mid 1800 to the late 1800 or beginning of 1900. And there's two reasons why I found it really interesting. One was that you learn a lot about how it was in Denmark back then, because they tell about how, people growing up on farms, how they were poor and why they moved away, which is very interesting and something I didn't know about. And also it tells a lot about how America was back then, and you see it through the eyes of Danes, which is very interesting because they come from a whole other culture. So it's just a great book, and I really recommend it, and I really like reading it. And it also made me think about my own trip from Denmark, to the US when I immigrated and how that was. So I was thinking that I wanted to tell that story for one of my shows. So that's what we're doing today. So when we met in 92, was it 92? It wasn't 93. Oh, 93, we're not sure. Okay, 92 or 93. Anyway, you were living in Denmark, so I didn't think about, living in the US. But then over the next couple of years, we visited a lot, right? Your family and friends, and we traveled around, and I got excited about the US. I'm like, this is a great place. I was excited about it. I remember one of the things I really liked was Barnes and Nobles, because I always liked books, and I was just amazed by the fact that you could go in somewhere and there were all these books, and you could sit in a soft chair and drink coffee and read these books all day, and you'd have to buy them. And I did end up buying a lot of books because of that, but it was just fantastic. I really liked that. And your family, of course, I love your family. So over the years, I got more like intrigued. And also, I was kind of an entrepreneur, kind of a person. And in Denmark, I worked with kids as a pedagogue, and I really wanted to kind of do more creative stuff. And I did start to do creative stuff in Denmark, but I felt when I came over here that there was a lot of support. Like when you said to people, oh, if you said to people, oh, I want to do this and I want to do that, people said, yeah, you should do it. And I have someone you can, I have a friend and I have an uncle and you should talk to him. And it was always networking and helping each other. And I felt that was really nice. And I missed that in Denmark. I didn't get the same support I felt. So that was another reason why we talked about and finally decided to do a test run over here. So first we talked about maybe to move for a year. We had an apartment in Denmark and we were just going to rent it out and move for a year. But then as we got closer, I think we decided, no, a year wasn't enough. We should have longer. So we decided to sell our apartment. And so we did that, and we packed our things and we sold a lot of stuff. And I think we had 17 boxes or something. 17 boxes. We packed all our stuff and we shipped it to Chicago. And your parents helped us find an apartment in Evanston. And it was kind of surreal, the whole thing. It was just, I remember saying goodbye to friends and family and just leaving there in Kastrup Lufthavn and in the airport in Denmark. And it was, I don't know, I had no idea what we were doing. I mean, I didn't know what we were up for. I didn't know what was going to happen. I just kind of felt it was extended vacation or something. And so we flew and we landed in Chicago, and your parents picked us up. And then I started to look for work. I wanted to do web design. I've done some design work in Denmark and I've done some artwork, but I really didn't have experience in web design, but I really wanted to do it. And this was in '97, and I just applied. And I remember your grandfather especially. He was really a businessman and a lovely person, and he really wanted to help me out. So he bought me my first suit. And I remember having this suit on that I felt so like not myself in this suit. And when I went out to network meeting and stuff, I had my suit on, and I made a portfolio of what I had, and a couple of months went by, and I did a lot of networking, and I talked to a lot of people, and I had a whole little book, I remember, where I wrote all the different things about who I talked to and when to call them back and all that stuff. Something I learned from you and from your family. And so then eventually someone took my resume, and I was lucky. I felt I was really lucky because he was a fantastic person, and he was himself new to the company. He was a partner in this new company that did internet consulting, which was new that back then. He needed someone to create websites, and he called me in for an interview. And so I put on my suit, and I put my little resume under my arm, and I took the train from Evanston down to Chicago, to Michigan Avenue. For me, already a huge city that was like a little scary. And so I got off the train, and I walked up Michigan Avenue, and I looked at the address, and it was, I think, a 401 North Michigan Avenue. And I came to this building, and I looked up, and it was just a huge building, and I was going to be interviewed on the 26th floor. I think it was the 24th floor. I remember standing there looking up and feeling so out of my element. Like, what am I doing here? That little, pedagog from Denmark just interviewing for a job I really didn't know if I could do in a language I wasn't really that good at. I felt that moment was just like I stepped into a new world. That was a huge transition for me. I could have walked away right there, but everybody depended on me, and everybody knew I was going, and I had a suit, and so I better do it. So I went in the elevator and went up, and I remember stepping out into the front area of this office, and the first thing you see when you step out is these huge windows that overlooks the whole city. And it almost took my breath away. I'm like, this can't even be true. I was so out of my element. And I remember asking for the person's name I was going to meet, and the secretary, the front desk person, said, sit down. And I waited, and Sonny, his name was Sonny, he came out, and he said, welcome, and come in. And it turned out he was really good. One of the things he did that was fantastic, and I think unusual still, is that he said to me, why don't you sit in my chair, and then I sit in your chair so you can feel more comfortable. And that was just so sweet of him. It made me feel so, oh my God, it was so nice. That was amazing. I felt so received. It was really special, and I'm friends with him on Facebook still, and I always think about that. He did an amazing thing for me. It was very sweet, and there was just for me, that was such a moment of being received. I felt lucky. I was so lucky because he ended up hiring me, and he didn't even want to see my resume. He was just like, I like you. I think we can work together. And so I got a job there, and I got my own office, and I had the most amazing view of Chicago City and the river, and I was very lucky working with Sonny, and I just, every day was hard because it was new for me, and I learned every day, and I stayed with them for a couple of years. But I'm still so thankful for getting that opportunity, because that really made a big difference for me, because then I started to learn a lot, and I got income, and I felt received in the US. So after being in Chicago for 1.5 years, I went back to Denmark to visit in the Christmas. But I do remember right before I went back, I haven't met any Danes in Chicago in all that time. And I remember walking downtown in a lunch break, and I heard 3 guys speaking Danish. And I was like it was like being on a desert island, and all of a sudden there were other people. So I remember running over to them and just starting to chat with them. in Danish, and I was so like, oh my God, aren't we lucky we met each other? And these guys just arrived from Copenhagen last week, I think, and they just had a contracting job in Chicago, and they couldn't care less about meeting me. They wanted to meet Americans. And I remember I was so disappointed. I was so disappointed. I so missed Danes, right? And I was so like, oh my God. And I kind of understood it right away that why would they talk to me, right? I was just another Dane for them. But for me, that was just so special, and that was hard. And I missed Denmark so much. Really, I missed it a lot. So that December, I went back after 1.5 years, and I remember I was at my brother's birthday party, and a lot of people. I think he had a round birthday. Maybe he turned 40, and I remember sitting next to a family member of mine. Remember, we were sitting there and we were just talking, and I felt kind of weird being back, and everything was so strange. All of a sudden I was in Denmark, and I was at a Christmas luncheon, and it was just, a birthday party, but it was so different from what I experienced the last 1.5 years. And then I was sitting there, and I remember she turned to me and she said, she's from Fyn, and she said, "Jeg hører du arbejder på kontor." So in the Fyn, she said, I hear you work in an office. But in Denmark, when you say that, it's just so like almost nothing. Or it's like, I don't know, I can't even explain. People will understand who knows Danish. It felt so flat. Considering everything I've been through and great success I felt I had with my income and the work I've done and the living around across, the other side of the world. And then she said that, and it was so not seen. I felt so not seen. And I still to today, I just feel that kind of pulled me back into Denmark in a way that I didn't feel received. And I think that experience was part of me feeling coming back to Chicago after the Christmas break that I wanted to stay in the US. We decided that, okay, we were going to stay in the US at least for a long time or for a while. And because of that, we said, okay, where do we really want to be? What would be the best place for us to live? Where, if we could choose any place. And although we have lots of family in Chicago, we really kind of at the same time said San Francisco, and we both had different reasons. You wanted to study out here, right? And there was a school that you really, a CIIS, that you were really interested in. And I knew Silicon Valley and Apple Computer was here, and I was totally into Apple Computer. And the whole tech business, an internet boom was just starting. And so for us, that was really the place. So we went out here for a week and looked for a place to live, and we found an apartment through, my ups and downs, but we found an apartment in Berkeley. And I went to my job and told them I was going to quit, and they said, why don't you just stay working with us and work from home? So that's what happened. So we moved to to San Francisco from Chicago in '99, and it was amazing because I had a job, and we found a little apartment, and we settled in Berkeley, which was so different than Evanston. Oh my God! It took me a while to get used to being in Berkeley. It was quite different. We lived very close to People's Park, and a lot of homeless people, and a lot of like the '60s vibes, and not really clean streets or anything like Evanston. And I remember driving into Berkeley first time, and we looked around for apartments. I remember feeling, I think I even said to you, I could not live here. I cannot live here. And guess what? I'm still here, and I love it. This book has a lot of really, really great stories. But you could all be in this book. We all went through similar things that these guys did. And I'm interested in your story. I want to hear from you. What is your process? What was amazing for you? What was super scary? And how did it change you to move? And if you didn't do it yourself, if your parents did it, your grandparents, how did it change them? What happened? I would love to hear their stories, and I would love for you to share the stories with all of us. So I hope you will do that. You can do it in writing. you can do it in audio, or you can do it on video. Here are the different ways. I'll put it on the video so you can see the different ways you can share your story.